Okay, class, picking up where we left off at. We started off with the temperature at -7 degrees Fahrenheit, and it said it rose 4 degrees. So we would add 4 degrees Fahrenheit, and then by 7 a.m. it then rose another 9 degrees from 7 to 8 p.m., which would be another 9 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, aside from the degrees Fahrenheit, this looks just like the integers we just covered. Now, if you look here, -7 plus 4, they have different signs. So again, in your mind, you should be thinking 7 minus 4, which is 3. But since 7 is the larger number and is negative, it ends up being -3. And we have to add this to the 9 degrees Fahrenheit. And then they have opposite signs. So we would take 9 minus 3, which is 6. So since 9 is larger than 3 and is positive, it will remain a positive 6. So your final answer here would be 6 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, number 2, it says you had a balance of $55 in your checking account. You accidentally wrote a check for $62. Your bank charged you $25 for the overdraft. Once you realize your error, you make a $100 deposit. What is the new balance in your checking account? Okay, so you start off with $55. So that's a positive number. Then you wrote a check for $62. Now we know that takes money out of your account. So we would add a negative $62 because that's taking $62 out of your account. And then the bank charged you $25 for the overdraft. That's also taking money out of your account. So it'll be a negative $25. And then once you realize your error, you make a $100 deposit. So you will add $100 to your account. So now, what we have to do, we have to combine the integers. So if you notice here, this 55 and -62, they have different signs. So in your mind, you should be thinking 62 minus 55, which is 7. But 62 is larger, so it'll be a -7. So this would be a -$7. And we will add our -$25. Then we will add our $100. Now, if you look here at -$7 and -$25, they have the same sign. So you will add them together and carry the sign. So that would be a -$32 plus the $100. Now, with the $100, they have different signs. So you would think in your head, 100 minus 32, which would give us 68. And since the 100 is positive, our final answer would be $68. Okay, now, it says a card player had a score of a -13 for each of 4 games. Find her total score. Now, we could do this 2 ways. We could say a -13 plus a -13 plus a -13 plus a -13. Or we could do -13 times 4. Now, either one is satisfactory. If you notice, all of these have the same sign, so you will add them together and carry the sign. 13 4 times will give us, what's that, 52. So it'll be a -52, and negative times a positive is negative, and 13 times 4 is 52. So it still gives you the same answer. The total score will be a -52. Now, number 4. 7 college students share a paper route to earn money for expenses. The total in their fund after expenses was $5,110. How much is each person's equal share? Now remember, 7 college students, they have $5,110. So it'll be the same thing as taking $5,110 and dividing it by 7, or writing it as a fraction. You can write it as a division problem. So it'd be 7 into 5,110. Now, if you notice, both of these are positive numbers, so your final answer would be positive. We know 7 does not go into 5, but 7 does go into 51 7 times. 7 times 7 is 49. 51 minus 49 will give us 2. We bring down our 1. 7 goes into 21 3 times. 3 times 7 is 21. And we have 0. We bring this 0 down. 7 goes into 0 times. So our final answer would be $730 each. Now, we scroll here to page to section D, order of operations, and this is page 5. Okay, now our order of operations, as we know, the first thing we have here is parentheses. Okay, class, initially I ran into a little technical difficulty, so I had to type this in. So our first operation is parentheses. It says look for all grouping symbols including not only parentheses but also brackets in the numerator and denominator of a fraction. Next, look for operations inside the grouping symbols. Is there any calculation to do inside the grouping symbols, or are they just there as separators? So, here's the thing here. When we talk about parentheses, there are a few parentheses here. We have the regular parenthesis sign, we have brackets, and we also have what people call those squiggly lines, which is called braces. We also have absolute value, which it almost looks like 11, but we know this is absolute value. And then we also have the fraction bar. And what I'm going to do to signify this as parentheses, I'm going to put X over Y and then circle this. So you'll know we're talking about the fraction bar. These are all form of parentheses. Now, when they talk about used as separators, let's go back up and let me show you an example when it was used as a separator. Back here when we were multiplying these values here, these negative and positive signs, these parentheses were used as separators because technically this is really just multiplication because there's nothing you could do inside the parentheses, because that's one thing about parentheses, you do what's inside of the parentheses. So you cannot do anything inside of these parentheses, so these parentheses are considered to be separators. That's what's meant by that. Now we move on to exponents. It says, remember that the power applies only to what is directly in front of it. Be especially careful with fractions and negative numbers. Now this is just giving a cautionary tale, but just to refresh in your memory on exponents, remember like if we have 5 to the second power, we know that this superscripted 2 is your exponent. So first thing we do is all parentheses. Then we do exponents. After we move from exponents, we move on to multiplication or division. It's whichever one comes first from left to right. And here it says do the multiplication division problems in the order that they appear in the problem. Working from left to right. It's like reading a book. You read from left to right, and so you do multiplication or division from left to right. These operations have the same priority. Neither takes precedence over the other. So multiplication is not more valuable than division. Division is not more valuable than multiplication. Okay, so now, just to illustrate this, if you do a problem like 5 divided by 5 times 6, you do what comes first from left to right, so it'll be 1 times 6, which is 6. Now, if you think multiplication takes priority over division, you would have did the multiplication first. Now watch what happens here. If we have 5 divided by 5 times 6 is 30. If you put 5 divided by 30 in your calculator, it will come out to be 1/6, which is 0.166, and then you'll round it to a 7. So these answers are totally different. So you have to be cautious of that. Okay, now number 4, addition or subtraction. It's the same thing as multiplication or division. You do whichever one comes first between addition and subtraction, whatever the order is, and this is the last thing you would do with the order of operations. Now, we're going to go on and apply the order of operations with our examples here. We have -2 squared plus -4 in parentheses squared plus 1 squared. Now the first thing we do is look for parentheses. we have these parentheses here, but it's nothing we could do inside of this parenthesis. So this is basically just a separator. So next we will look for exponents. So we'll go to the first exponent here. Now, with this problem here, the only thing that's taken to the second power is this 2, not the negative sign. So this will become -4, because 2 squared, I'll write it up here, is 2 times 2, which is 4. So this will be -4 plus parenthesis -4 squared plus 1 to the 5th power. Now we're still not done with the exponents. So we would take this parenthesis -4 squared. Now this is a little different than the -2 was, because we're taking -4 in parentheses times -4 in parentheses. That will give us a positive 16. So it'd be -4 plus 16 plus 1 to the 5th power. So this will give us -4 plus 16, and then 1 to the 5th power is just 1. It's just 1 multiplied by itself 5 times. So now we will combine them. We have -4 plus 16. They have opposite signs. So remember, this would be the same thing as 16 minus 4 is 12. And since the 16 is positive, we'll keep the 12 positive. Plus 1. 12 plus 1 is 13, and that is your final answer. Now we come here. We have 2 times the parenthesis 2 minus 9 plus a -12 in parentheses minus 3. So when we have multiple parentheses, we do the first parenthesis that comes first from left to right. So we would do 2 minus 9. We know that's the same as 2 plus a -9, which would give us, well, I'm going to write it up here. That's the same as 2 plus a -9, which is the same thing as saying, for in our brain, 9 minus 2, which is 7. But since this has the height, since this 9 is a larger number and is negative, it'll be -7. So we have -7 in parentheses plus a -12 minus 3. Now this -7 in parentheses, we can't do anything with that. So we'll go to the other parenthesis. We can't do anything with that as well. So these are separators. So now we look for the next operation. We're done with parentheses. We're done with, there's no exponents. So we look for multiplication or division. We do have multiplication here. So we'll do 2 times -7, which is -14, plus this -12 minus 3. Now, if you look here, -14, well, first of all, we look to see if there's any more multiplication. There's not. So the parentheses are done, the exponents are done, multiplication and division are done. So we look here for addition and subtraction. So now we have -14 plus -12. They have the same sign, so we will add them together and get -26. Now -26 minus 3 is the same thing as -26 plus a -3, which will give us a -29 because they have the same sign. Now we scroll on down to the next problem. Now we have -4 minus a -5 times 2 plus 3 times a -1 times a -2 minus a -8. And you notice with all of these parentheses, there's no operations being performed inside of those parentheses. So they're separators. There's no exponent, so we look for multiplication or division. We do have multiplication, so we have minus a -5 times a +2, which will give us -10. And we'll bring down everything else. Now, we have -4, and then we have minus a -10, but we want to complete all the multiplication first. So we have plus, so we have 3 times -1, which is -3, times a -2, which will give us a +6, minus a -8. So we had -4. Now we have no more multiplication and no division, so we go to addition and subtraction. So we had -4 minus a -10 will become +10. And we'll bring down the rest. Now,